Once, when my son Abraham was 6 weeks old, I was standing in line at my local bakery. I had him in a sling and I was feeding him. The sling's fabric was twisted and my hair was caught in the knot, but the baby had finally taken his bottle and I was loath to adjust anything for fear of disturbing our tenuous peace. I rocked a bit on my heels. The baby paused in his sucking and I held my breath. Suddenly, a voice behind me said, "You know, breast is best." I turned. The speaker, a woman a few years older than I, smiled pleasantly. Now, the correct response to that comment might have been a stern rejoinder to mind her own business. It might even have included profanity. Instead, what I did was burst into tears and launch into a long explanation about how the milk in the bottle was my own, pumped at 4 a.m. while everyone else in the house was asleep. I had, in fact, been pumping breast milk for Abraham every 2 hours, I told the stranger, because my son was born with a palate abnormality that made it impossible for him to suck properly from the breast. Abe's feeding problem wasn't diagnosed until he was 2 weeks old. He weighed a healthy 7.5 pounds when he was born, a nice plump baby. Immediately, however, he began losing weight, and by the time, 10 days later, the pediatrician finally made time to see him, he was dangerously thin. No one, not the nurses in the hospital, nor the pediatrician who visited him there daily during the 4 days of my recuperation from my C-section, nor the hospital lactation consultant, nor even I, his mother, had noticed that the baby was getting no milk when he nursed. None of them had noticed his abnormal palate. He had probably not managed to extract more than a few ounces of milk a day since he was born, a tenth of what he should have been consuming. He was, in short, starving to death. I had been worrying about the baby's weight from the day after he was born. For the first few days after he nursed, my breasts would leak colostrum, the substance responsible for clearing the baby's bilirubin and meconium and passing on a jolt of immunoglobulins. Loath to waste the precious liquid, I'd asked for a breast pump. My plan had been to pump my breasts empty immediately after he nursed and then mix the colostrum with a bottle of sugar water, which I would then encourage him to drink. The hospital lactation consultant had walked in on me. "Why are you doing that?" she said, pointing to the bottles hooked up at the pump. "You've got plenty of milk." I'd pumped for only a minute, but produced at least an ounce of colostrum. Instead of wondering why my breasts were still so full after the baby had supposedly nursed, she confiscated the pump. For the next week or so, my brain still fogged by painkillers and sleep deprivation, I fretted. Whenever anyone came to see him, I would ask, "Do you think he looks too skinny?" When I changed his diaper, I would measure the circumference of his thigh with my thumb and middle finger. Again and again I asked my husband if he thought the baby was gaining weight, as he should. When I couldn't get an appointment with a pediatrician, isn't this a great medical system? I asked the local public health nurse to come by and weigh him. Unfortunately, and for reasons I never really understood, she was far more interested in screening me for domestic violence than in evaluating the baby. "He's fine," she said absently, ticking off an item from her checklist. "Has your husband physically assaulted you in the past 30 days? I was worried, but not sufficiently to take action. I accepted everyone's reassurances that Abraham was doing fine, that my concern was nothing more than a reflection of my own neuroses. After all, what Jewish mother doesn't think her baby should eat more? I even went forward with Abe's bris, performed by a moil who happened to be a pediatrician, who also missed the fact that the baby was slowly dying of dehydration. The red wine the moil dripped into Abe's mouth might in fact have been the most liquid he consumed in a single sitting in the entire previous 8 days of his life. I was, however, sufficiently concerned not to be altogether surprised at our pediatrician's response when she finally put him on a scale. She disappeared from the room and returned with a bottle of formula. "Give this to him," she said, "now." Abe drank 4 ounces of formula in 5 minutes, astonishing for a baby his age. I sat there feeding him and crying, horrified that I had allowed my baby to starve, sick at the thought that he'd been in pain. He had cried a lot during his first few days of life, doing what he could to let us know he was hungry. After a while, however, he had stopped. He was a good baby, we told people. We hadn't realized until that moment that he had simply grown too weak to utter more than the smallest whimper. I know, right? The pediatrician told us that she would allow us to take him home for 1 night, but if we couldn't put half a pound on him by the next morning, she would have to admit him to the hospital. 24 hours later, when she put him on the scale, he had gained almost a full pound. I had not slept for even a moment the night before. Instead, I had held him in my hands all night long, watching his emaciated chest rise and fall. During those long hours, the membrane between life and death seemed so very thin. He was tiny, a weightless bundle of sticks wrapped in translucent skin. I felt his heart beating and the blood flowing through his thread-thin veins. Every breath seemed like it could have been his last. As soon as he opened his mouth, I or Michael popped in the bottle. We kept feeding him long past when he was full, long after he wanted to go back to sleep. We unwrapped him from his blankets, tickled the soles of his feet, anything to keep him awake and drinking. I began pumping that night for 45 minutes out of every 2 hours, giving myself no more than an hour and a quarter rest between sessions. All this I told the woman standing in line behind me at the cafe. I told her how I had weathered plugged ducts and breast infections. I showed her that the milk in that very bottle was colored a faint shade of purple from the gentian violet I'd been applying to treat a brutal case of thrush. To establish my breastfeeding bona fides, I even told her how especially traumatizing my failure to feed this baby was, given that I'd successfully nursed 3 children, one for nearly 3 years. She gave me absolution. I was doing great, she said. Keep it up, because, you know, breast really is best. The producer said, well, as I've been trying to tell you, we've decided to go with kind of alternate format today, and we've assembled a group of moms for a kind of living room discussion. And, they hate you, but hey, you are a criminal defense attorney. You're used to hostile juries. You'll be fine. So I go out on the stage, and, I'm flanked by producers. And as I walk out, they're, inviting women from the angry audience up to sit in this living room. And I'm one of the women who's selected, is so excited about being selected that she leaps forward saying, "Let me at her!" And I just thought, I'm getting the fuck out of here. I do not need to do some kind of elaborate Jerry. This is not, no Jerry Springer. I'm a grown-up. I don't need this. I don't care how many, and I'm about to get up when, the door opens, and in a halo of golden light steps a goddess, an angel from really, seriously, she's not even human. She glows, I swear to God, there's gold shimmeriness. Her head is twice as big as a normal human head. She smells really good. And I was like, oh. And she sat down next to me and she did this incredible thing. She leans over and she whispers, "The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay was one of the best books I've read in my life." And what am I thinking?
Can you say that again?
The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay was one of the best books I've read in my life. No, I am thinking Oprah Book Club, right? Because Oprah Book Club sells between 800,000 and 1 million books. Do you know how much money that is if you are getting $2 a book? I mean, I have 4 children in private school. I was like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying right here with my best. And she did. She made me feel like I was her best friend. I mean, we whispered, we giggled, we talked, we held hands, we were rubbing each other. Every commercial break, we're like, and the audience was like, I'm swearing, it was a long run. Crazy, just a group of bed bugs. It was amazing. I mean, one woman says to me, I have 4 children too, but I'm a good mother. I never have sex with my husband. And on the rare occasions where I let him do his business, I watch TV. I know, so you and I were like, we don't know what to say. This is the difference between human beings and the angel from another planet. Oprah looks at the women and without missing a beat says, "What do you watch?" To which the response is, Jeopardy. So there is a joke in there about buying a vowel. Someone smarter than I will have to find it. Anyway, but because it's Oprah, and because Oprah does believe in me, but agree with me, and because they are Oprah obsessed, by the end of the show, she had like a cruise ship turning in the water. Everyone was like, "Oh, of course, Ayelet, that's right. We totally agree with Ayelet. We love Ayelet. We just didn't like the way she said it." Yeah, it was insane. And the most insane thing was I get off the stage and I call Michael and I'm like, "Oh my God, honey, Oprah and I had this incredible connection. You know, sometimes you meet someone and you just feel, you are so in sync about so many things. It's like, you're new." I'm like, "I think we're going to be really friends. And I'm sure we're going to, when she's in Santa Barbara, it's not that far from there. I'm sure we're going to go down there. You're going to have to learn how to play golf with Stedman, huh?" And my husband's like, "Okay." So I wrote Oprah a letter as soon as I got home. "Dear Oprah, the connection, the bond, the you, the me, the friends." And I got back a letter no kidding, I didn't even know they even had mimeographs anymore. And it was like sort of crooked, and it's like, dear guest, thank you for sharing your story. I know. So I called Isabel Allende, whose book had been an Oprah book pick, and I was like, Isabel, and I just said, Isabel, Oprah Winfrey, and she said, your best friend for 47 minutes. And it's true, it was. I mean, and I think she actually thought, I mean, it's not like it's fake, it's real. It just ends, you know? It's like the sun comes out, it just goes away.